Hi, welcome to Into the Word. I hope you're doing very well. There's a passage of scripture which I love to look at, and I've looked at it before. It's a passage which I've been looking at for a good 2 years or so. And what I do is I look at it for a few months, forget about it, then go back to it, forget about it, go to something else. Well, not forget about it, but just move on from it, I should say. Forgive me. And I do that, and I go back to it, come back, go back, go back, come back, come back, come back, go back. And I love it. It's so good. It's found in Romans chapter 12, verse 2. So it's Romans chapter 12, verse 2. And this is what he says. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you can prove what is that good and acceptable, perfect will of God. Again, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you can prove what is that good and acceptable, perfect will of God. I'll say it one more time. And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed. How? How can you be transformed? Very simple. By the renewing of your mind. Why should you renew your mind? So you can be transformed. Why? So that you can prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God in your life. And so I was thinking about this the other day, and I thought to myself, actually, if he says, do not be conformed, but be ye transformed, that must suggest something. If he's asking us not to do something, and he's asking us to do something, he'd be only asking us not to do something if we're doing it. And he'd only ask us to do something if we're not doing it. Do you understand? You wouldn't say to me, don't go down that road, unless I was going down that road. Unless there was a tendency to go down that road. You wouldn't ask me to do something if I was already going to do it. You wouldn't ask me not to do something if I was not going to do it in the first place. I wouldn't say to you, don't read that, don't read this, if there was an intention that you were going to do it. And so what I was thinking is that this is so awesome, because he's saying, look, don't do this, but do this. The reason he says don't do this, because there's a tendency for it to happen. The tendency is for us to be conformed. And so he says, do not be conformed. Do not be conformed to what? To this world. So the tendency is to be conformed. How are we being conformed? Well, it's very easy. It's not complicated. You don't need a PhD or a law degree to understand this. But what's happening is we go through situations. We go through certain scenarios in our lives. We all do, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, every 5 years, every 10 years, every 20 years, every 50 years. We all go through situations. We all go through different things. We all enter into different scenarios, circumstances. And what happens is we get conformed to thinking a particular way. And what happens is when we think a particular way, we don't see a way out of that situation. We don't see a way out of that scenario. If we're going through a difficult period in our marriage and we think a particular way, the way that we're thinking, we don't see how can we make this better, because we begin to think a way where the more common way of thinking is that, you know what, I could do with divorce. And so what happens is the way that we see that situation conforms us. And what Paul is saying is, do not think like that, because if you think like that, your situation will always be like that. There is not a way out of that situation because of the way that you're thinking. You are being conformed. You are being shaped. You are being pushed, molded into that pattern of behavior because of the way that you think. You see? So if we begin to think that actually, you know what, there is a way out, then what happens is we're being transformed. We're being transformed. And what happens is the way out works itself out through us. And so, there are many people who are addicted to nicotine. Many people are addicted to drugs. You know this. And the people who are addicted to those things, more often than not, they're going to think that they can't be any other way. If you've been addicted to anything in your life, you will understand this. You look at yourself, you look at your situation, and you think to yourself, is it always going to be like this? Is this what life has for me? Is this what all my life is about? Can I not do anything else? Can I not be any other way? If you know people who are bitter, if you've ever been bitter, that root of bitterness enters in and it grows, and you don't see a way out. The reason you don't see a way out is because all we think is that, is it always going to be like this? And as long as we think that way, we are being conformed. What are we being conformed by? It's not the situation that conforms us. We go through situations, we have scenarios where we have disagreements. Some of them can be quite nasty. These things do happen. We go through life where sometimes we've been wronged. In work situations, in business, we get wronged. And then we begin to think a particular way. We think, oh, you know what? If I ever met that person down a dark alley, I'll show him a thing or two. And what happens is, while we think that way, we are being conformed. And whilst we're being conformed, there is no way out. The way out is to renew your mind. We'll go there in a minute. And so in that situation, we get conformed, we get molded, we get formed, we're molded, we're pushed into that way of thinking even more. It's reinforced. That way of thinking is reinforced, and the more it's reinforced, the harder it is to get out of that situation. We don't see a way out of that situation. There are people who are going through fear, people who suffer panic attacks. These things are very real. For some people, they'll say, oh, okay, well, you know what, I can stand up in front of 1,000 people and do this and do that and do this. Whereas some people will say, you know what, I'm uneasy in any groups above 3 or 4. I have panic attacks. And so those people are going through fear. And as long as they think, is this all there is for me? As long as they think, will my life always be like this? Then those thoughts are just reinforcing that way, that pattern of behavior. And so what will happen is they won't go to certain places. They'll avoid certain situations because they don't want to feel uneasy. They don't want to feel anxious. They don't want to suffer a panic attack. And so they constantly stay away. And those people are experiencing fear, and they have those kind of thoughts. Is it always going to be like this? Will my life always be like this? Will I never be able to stand in front of more than 4 or 5 people and have a conversation? Because of fear. These things are very, very real. These things are very real. Believe you me. And what we have to do is we have to begin to think a different way. You know what? There are people who are going through health issues. Some people who are seriously ill and have been ill for a long time. And these people, as long as they think it will always be that way, as long as they always keep thinking, is that constant thought pattern is, will I ever be healed? Will I ever recover? Will I ever be well? Will I ever be able to walk again? Will I ever be able to run? Will I ever be able to play games, play sports? As long as they keep thinking that way, they're going to keep being conformed, because that way of thinking is conforming them. And so there is no escape. You can't see it because it's your thoughts that are keeping you there. You know, people who are bitter against people who are angry people for no reason. You know, as long as they keep thinking that this is it, this is all that there is for them, this is the way that they are, they're just being conformed to that pattern of thinking. They're being conformed. Their behaviors follow the way of thinking. And so he says, Paul says, do not be conformed. Again, why would he say do not be conformed? Because the likelihood is that we are being conformed. So he's saying, look, Chaps, I know you're going through this. I know you're going through that. I know you have situations which aren't very pleasant, but don't think a particular way. Think another particular way. Don't think like how the world thinks. Think how Jesus would think. There are people who are hurt by people at work. There are people who've been hurt in relationships. There are people who've been hurt by friends, by family, by people who they thought they could trust, by people who they thought they could rely on, by people who they thought that they could depend on in certain situations. They've been let down. And so they're upset and they're hurt. And their thoughts are towards that person. Their thoughts are, I feel bad. I feel like this towards that person. It's not the right way to think. Jesus says, bless those who curse you and pray for those who use you. Bless your enemies. Bless those people. Pray for those people. And that's his way of thinking. But the world's way of thinking is that, well, he done this, she done this. I'm not going to let him get away with that. I had a situation where I spoke to a colleague at work, and he thought he was being wronged by somebody at work. And he said to me, Phil, wait until I get my revenge. And I said to him, hold on a minute. Youngin, his name is. Hold on a minute, Youngin. What are you doing? He says, no, Phil, he done this, then he done this, then he done this, but I will have my day. And I said to him, no. This is all wrong. This is not how we behave. Well, he's not a Christian, but he may be one day. And so I said to him, look, this is not the way that we behave. Yes, I understand you've been wronged. Yes, I understand you've been hurt. Yes, I understand you're upset. Yes, I understand that you've been let down. And I know it's not nice. And I'm not excusing that behavior towards you. Absolutely not. But revenge isn't yours to be had. You can't think that way, because if you think that way, you are the one who's getting hurt, not him. He's just carrying on with his life, the same way as he always has done. Whereas you're feeling this way about him. I said, no, you can't do that. You need to cool it. You need to chill. You need to take a chill pill. You need to relax. It's okay. You haven't lost anything. It's okay. And he said to me, no, I'm going to get my revenge. Anyway, he didn't get his revenge. But, that's being conformed. That's an example of how he was being conformed. Not by that situation. It wasn't the situation that was conforming him, but it was his thought patterns that was conforming him, molding him, pushing him, shoving him, and squeezing him to behave a certain way. And so that's one example. There are some people who will actually go that extra mile and take their revenge, but it might make them feel better for a minute. But ultimately, it doesn't make you feel better. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's the world's way. It's the world's system, but it's not God's system. It's not his system. And you know what? It's that thinking that conforms you. And Paul says, do not be conformed. Do not be conformed, but be transformed. You see, there's a way out. There's a way out from the situation. There is. There's a way out. There's a way out. It's almost like when he says be transformed, it's almost like he's saying, look, you're here, but I need you to be here. If you're here, then you can experience that. But if you're down there, you can only experience that. And when you're down there, all you experience is being conformed. And as long as you experience being conformed, you're always going to stay down there. And as long as you're down there, you're never going to experience what's up here. Because up here is the higher life. Up here is where the eagles fly. Up here is where we fly above the storm. And the way to fly above the storm, the way to fly where the eagles fly, the way to chill is to be transformed. It's that transformation that will take you from this place to this place. Is that transformation? Is that how do we get transformed? How are we being transformed? It's the renewing, the constant renewing of the mind. It's not a one-time event. It's not a two-time event. It's not something that we done is something that we do on a consistent, regular basis. It's the constant, regular renewing of that mind, which will take you from this low place to this high place. And when you get to this high place, you begin to experience something better, which He has for us. And that is God's perfect and good and acceptable will is here, not here. And so that's why Paul says, I know you're here. I know you feel like this. I know you experience this. But what I got for you, or rather God says, what I got for you is something up here. But the way to get here is to be transformed. And the way to be transformed, when he talks about transformation, he's talking about a total change. It's like, it's like a total change. Be transformed. It's like when a butterfly goes through that metamorphosis. Rather, the caterpillar goes through the metamorphosis and becomes a butterfly. It's the same thing, but it's something different. It was a caterpillar, but now it's a butterfly. There's a total transformation. He's up there. He was here, but now he's up here. He was there experiencing that life, but he went through a metamorphosis. He went through a process of change, which led him up here. Now he's up here. Now he's flying above the storm. He's soaring where the eagles soar, and he's above everything. But you have to go through that metamorphosis. You have to go through that stage of being transformed. And the way you go through that is to renew your mind. What does he mean by renewing your mind? It means totally brush away, push away, sweep away, get rid of that way of thinking. They did this, they did that. You know, sometimes we have a habit of pointing fingers. Sometimes we have a habit of trying to excuse our own behavior, but then pointing at other people and saying, look at what they've done, look at what she's done, look at what he said, look at what they've done. They shouldn't be there, they shouldn't be doing this, they shouldn't be wearing that. She's wearing high heels, she's wearing a short skirt, look at her dress, look at his trousers, look at what he's doing, look at what they said, look. And the only one place we don't look, the one place where we fail to look is at ourselves. We spend more time looking at other people, more time talking about other people. We text our friends, we text our family, we bring them up and we say, yo, they done this. Yo, they said that. Yo, she was wearing this in church. How could she possibly do that? Oh, look at what they done. Look at what he done. Look at what he said. Look at what she said. Look. Look at yourself. Look at myself. Look at myself. I should spend more time looking at me and looking at my inadequacies rather than looking at what other people have done and said and been and gone and done this, that, and the other. Who cares about what they've done? It doesn't impact my life whatsoever. And what other people have done doesn't impact your life whatsoever. So let's spend less time looking at other people. Let's spend less time talking about other people. And instead of spending those 2 minutes talking about other people, spending those texting those people about other people, let's spend those few minutes talking about what God has done for you, what God has done for me. Look. It's just madness. It's something that we need to stop doing. It's something that we need to make a conscious effort. What's happening while we're doing this? We're being conformed. What's happening while we're talking about other people behind their backs? What's happening while we're talking about other people to our friends and our families? About them, about what they're wearing, about what they've done, about what they said. We're being conformed because Jesus says, don't do that. Jesus says, look at yourself. If you look at yourself, you can see where you need to change. And if you change, other people will change because of your change. And so he says, do not be conformed. Do not let your situation, the way you see your situation, conform you to this world, but be transformed. There was a certain situation at work. A few of us, myself and a few of my colleagues, were going through a situation where we were being treated unfairly, and it was getting us down. It was getting us depressed. It was getting us anxious, and we didn't want to be at work. And we spoke about it. We spent so long talking about it. It was just amazing, amazing, amazing. And we went through 6 months or so of being treated unfairly. And it got to a point where none of us wanted to be at work. And I thought to myself, I read something in the Bible, and I thought to myself, hold on a minute, I'm looking at this the wrong way. I'm looking at this the wrong way. I am feeling the way I feel because of how I see this situation. I am allowing this situation to control how I feel. And because it controls how I feel, my actions or my behavior was following how I was feeling about that situation, i.e., I didn't want to go to work, i.e., I even went sick because of how I felt. And then I realized, hold on a minute, it's what I see, not what's going on. And so I changed the way I saw that situation. You see, while I saw it, how I first saw it as this isn't fair, what am I going to do? How will I get through this? How, why me? While I was going through that, I was being conformed and I was being shaped and I was being molded. And because of those things, I was being conformed to this world. And because of that, as I said before, it was making me feel bad. I was even getting depressed about the work because of it. And so what was going on? I was being conformed, not by the situation. Please understand. Please understand. Please, you must understand. It's not the situation. It's not where we find ourselves, but it's how we see where we find ourselves. One way of seeing it will conform us. And if we're being conformed, then we're imprisoned by that. The other way is to see it a different way. And that different way, we see it when we renew our minds, when we say, okay, it was like this, but okay, it's like that. You know what? I'm not going to allow this situation to dictate how I feel. You know what? I'm not going to say I'm being mistreated. You know what? I'm not going to say I'm not being treated fairly. I'm not going to say these things. I'm going to go into work, do my work. I'm going to come home, and that's it. That's where it stops. And when I changed the way I saw it, when I changed my thoughts about it, I was okay. I had a clear head. I had a clear head. And that's what he says here. He says, look, be transformed by the new way of thinking on a constant, on a regular, on a consistent, on a daily, on an hourly, on a excuse me, on a minute by minute, on a second by second basis. Do it all the time. Don't do it once or twice, but do it all the time. I saw it a different way. I was free. My mind was free. My mind was free. And so I allowed God to work in that situation through what I was thinking. I was renewing my mind. I was saying, you know what, God, this is okay. You know what, God, I'm not being treated unfairly. You know what, it's just work. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And I allowed God to come into that situation, and it gave me peace of mind. And people saw it, and I had the opportunity to share what had happened with people at work, with people who were in a higher authority than me. I said, well, look, because of that situation, I felt like this. But then I saw something in the Bible, and it totally changed the way I saw it. And now I see it like this. And because I see it like this, I am not stressed. I am not anxious. I am not depressed. I don't want to go home sick. I'm okay at work. So I was able to bring God some glory through that situation simply because I changed how I saw it. And so it's not what we go through, but it's how we see the situation. But you have to change the way you think. You have to renew your mind on a consistent, regular, daily basis. And when you do that, you allow God on the scene. And when he comes on the scene, he's able to work something wonderful in that situation. You might even, like myself, have the opportunity to share to people, you know what, this is how I saw it first and how I felt, and now I see it like this. And it's because I'm a Christian, I see it like this, and now I feel like this. I have peace in my mind, and because I have peace in my mind, God is able to work in my life. Excuse me. And it's an amazing thing. It really, really is. Honestly, this Christianity is amazing. Talk about having your mind blown. It's so amazing when you realize what you are, when you realize, you know, how much you need God. You know, you turn your focus, you turn your eyes onto the Word, onto Jesus, again on a consistent, regular basis. He'll work something wonderful in your life, and that's what he wants to do. He wants to move you from here to here. He wants to move you from there to there. He doesn't want you there anymore. Being there doesn't bring anyone any glory, doesn't bring God any glory. It certainly doesn't do any favors for you. It just locks you in that iron bar. They call it prison, I think, and you can't escape. Your thinking is keeping you there. And that's why he wants you to renew your mind. He wants you to think a different way so that you can come out of prison. You can go there. You can soar like eagles above the storm. It's where you want to be. It's where I want to be, above the storm. Who wants to be down there? Not me. I've been down there for 40 years. Do I want to be there any longer? No, I don't think I do. I've had enough of being down there. What's down there? Nothing. Nothing. What's up here? Everything. Everything's up here. It's where you want to be. It's where I want to be. It's where he wants us. I sure hope this message has blessed you. In Jesus' name, amen.